Hello, hello. Hi, welcome to Racing Cultures Bridging the Divides. I'm Reverend Dr. Barian Staples.
And I am Reverend Jennifer Staples, your co host.
Well, just to be very upfront, this is our very first podcast, and we're very just thrilled to be doing this today. Our podcast, as it indicates, is Racing Cultures Bridging the Divides. In mind, aren't we in a situation in this country, especially, and even around the world, where race and cultures are showing so much divisiveness?
Yeah, that is for certain.
And I just want to just preface this episode to say, again, thank you for joining us today. Um, I have a lot of things on my mind as I do all the time. And I'm just going to always be very open, very frank, and very candid about whatever I say. And whatever we have to say, hopefully, will enrich some of your thoughts. Our whole purpose of our podcast is to have an open dialogue based upon experiential process and learning that people have endured throughout their lives, and come together with a non-judgmental approach. We try to come up with solutions or just dialogue about what is happening in race and cultures. Jennifer, what do you think?
Well, I think that you've had a lot of experiences, and I'm excited for you to share.
Yes.
And I've had some too.
Yes.
Culture is not about race. It's
Oh,
not about skin color. It's about society. It's about how you live.
and so she kind of segued. We'll get into this subject again. What she talked about there in a quick snippet there was DEI. It's not about race. It's not about that. But guess what happens? We have to find a way to bring people together. DEI was that attempt to bring as much equality into the way people learn, the way people work, where they live in neighborhoods. And I'm talking about redlining and those kind of things, and what they've done with mapping and those sort of things when it comes to elections. So, two things are on my mind. I'm not talking about Georgia. You get that?
I got that.
Georgia on my mind. Look, help you. Ray Charles. We have had the installment of a new pope. So today I just want to get into talking about two subjects. One is the Pope, and another one is dealing with someone that has a special place in my heart for many reasons. Caitlin Clark
Better known as Cece.
and CC Rocks. And
Mhm.
she, of course, went to school at my alma mater, University of Iowa, go Hawkeyes, and where my wife hails from that state. And we are so excited for her. Not only do I like that, but I'm very familiar and have worked with her former coaches as we worked at a university together. But before we get into that, I just want to kind of get into this thing about the Pope, and excuse the noises um, that might happen from time to time. But
Shares.
we're trying to get used to this whole thing. I'm used to having mics and things for singing that and everything, but this is so different. But we'll get better, and I'm glad that you're with us today. So let's talk about the Pope. Well, the Pope, he is Pope Leo. And so here we have Pope Leo. Um, you can read that with me or with us. Now, you see the Pope right there. Pope Leo links to Haiti. Excuse me, can you pass him some of your water? Like I said, we're just going to be very open with our behavior today. Since this is our first episode, we can do all kinds of things and you guys won't hold it against us.
We're still amateurs learning,
Yes, we are.
but we have great information to share.
Lots of information. So, Pope Leo, oh boy, the 14th links to Haiti It's part of a broader American story of race. Here's that word again: citizenship and migration. And as we think about what's going on in our country, all that kind of has been going on. We talk about race. We have what's going on with people. You hear them saying, oh, black and brown folks, and you hear about white folks, and you hear about um, Asian, yellow folks. You hear about sometimes the people that were here before anybody else. Isn't that something? Like my grandfather and his mother and father. So we have race and citizenship that gets into that birther birther right thing. And migration, then you throw in there the word immigration. Immigration. Hmm. To come to a country from somewhere else, you immigrate. To migrate, you may be already in that country or somewhere else, and you leave and go to another area. For example, we migrated here to where we live from another area. So here we go. Early coverage of Pope Leo had explored the first American pontiff's Chicago upbringing, as well as the many years he spent in Peru, first as a missionary and then a bishop. Genealogist Jerry Honora wrote the story of the Pope's ancestors' connection to the Creole of color community in New Orleans.
League. Talking about the black.
Oh, wait a minute, you jumping ahead of me. We'll get in, she just jumped ahead of me. But listen to this. A family historian at the Historic New Orleans Collections, Williams Research Center, honors, Honora has given research presentation to graduate students and consulted with blah, blah, blah work in this research. So anyway, the Pope, I'm going to skip right down. It's Creole lineage in Louisiana. Interesting enough, but many uh, commentators have raised strain to make sense of the link to Haiti. Well, here we go. A grandfather born in Haiti. It's worth noting that Leo's genealogy is not entirely straightforward. At least one indicates Joseph Norville as being born in Louisiana in 1910. Census seems to reinvent the family's lineage. Martinez is Mount Martina. Joseph's birthplace is Sets Domingo, and he is reportedly Mount Maltese. Okay, so here we go. This is where it comes in at. It's a three-pronged racial gender. It is important to understand the historical complexity of the Creole identity in New Orleans and Louisiana and its continued significance today. This is what's important here. The descriptive Creole of color is somewhat anachronistic. It emerges as at the end of the 19th century in Louisiana, uh, categorized the descendants of historically subordinate class known as free people of color or gens de couleur libre. I mean, that's in French. It has its origin in the tripartite racial order of the French and Spanish colonial periods in the Americas. And authorities created a hierarchy of legal classes: enslaved people, free people, and Africans descent, and white people. Wow. Does that make sense to you, Jennifer?
Yeah, sure does.
Now, we do know that in South America, they have what is called a color gradient. It goes by color of a person's skin. The lighter they are, and darker they are, that type of thing. So here we have the Pope. The Pope definitely comes from roots of color. In America, to justify slavery, um, they had what was called the one drop rule. So if you had any black blood in you, be it from Africa or the West Indies, you were considered black. Hence, President Barack Obama,
Yeah.
they call him the first black president.
Wasn't
Well,
black.
black, but neither,
He was a little black.
but any, okay, here we go. But everybody all our, and we can get into in another session, but we all are descendants from the same continent, the great continent of Africa. But think about President Obama. His father was from Africa, Kenya. His mother was from the heartland for Dorothy and Toto,
Kansas.
Kansas, and Auntie May. And here we are.
So that makes him a true African
And he
American.
is definitely African and American. But guess what? In this country, this is what evolved. This is very important. Despite their relative prosperity, I'm reading again, free people of color in Louisiana and throughout the United States were being subjected to increasing legal restrictions, repression, and violence in the years leading up to the Civil War. The situation worsened in the 1840s and 50s as white Southerners worked to further restrict citizenship and rights along hard racial lines. Sounds familiar in 2025? We're talking, you know, a lot of years, 200 some years later. And then this is always when I was studying this area, this always got me. The 1857 Dred Scott Supreme Court decision, you can go to St. Louis and see where he is, affirmed that any people descended from Africa, including free people of color, had no right to citizenship.
Wow.
So they said because the slaves, free or not free, were considered property and not just not even a citizen. They weren't even considered to be human. Constitution put them down as three-fifths a person. So here we go. We got the Pope from America, from Chicago, my city, where I used to rip and run. We have Pope. And I do know some things about him. Actually, one of my cousins lived in the same area that he lived in, and I lived around some of those areas. So for those, I'm going to just read this second part here, and I'll cover this article at another time. For those who remained in the South, the outbreak of the Civil War in 1861 would have made life even more difficult. In the first half of the 19th century, many free people of color in Louisiana immigrated to France. Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
But the two main options in the 1860s were Haiti and Mexico. So, you see why the Pope has so much connection, like why he went to Peru. And I know a lot of stories about him, even out of Chicago, and some wonderful things that he's done. He's out there now.
Mm-hmm.
I said his brother Pope. He's doing some things. So,
But you know what? I wonder, does he recognize his own lineage?
of course he does.
But does he may recognize it, but does he grasp it? Does he what's he gonna do with it? I guess that's the real main thing. Like
well, his
now that you're Pope, what are you gonna do?
I think his brother name is John. And we'll bring forth an interview that his brother did that talks about that whole thing. No, they definitely embrace their lineage, and I think he's just honest person. He believed in justice and righteousness and integrity. Uh, that's that's the Pope that we have now.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about that. So, so just for our beginning, first episode, wanted to just share this with you. Now, just think about that for a minute, and I'd like to segue into um, another aspect of culture, and that is any aspect of athletics. We have football players, we have lots of things of that nature. And the good thing about what I'm going to talk about covers many areas of culture. We're talking about women of WNBA, women being recognized, women being finally after the WNBA has been around for what 30 years now. That's was funded by the uh, NBA all these years. And then we have the superstar phenom they call the generational talent, which I feel she really is. Caitlin Clark, who has set records. Sorry about that. Records last year alone, her first year, she set 62 records. Who ever heard of such a thing? She's the leading scorer for men and women. One of my great idols, Pistol Pete Maravich, she even broke his record on the men's division in NCAA.
Didn't she break every record I as a rookie?
Every record as a rookie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even as a rookie, her first year, the all-time leading assist leader that played
Mhm.
for several years to get that record, Caitlin broke it in one season. She's just a phenom. But what's happening here, and we're talking about race. Race is definitely a social construct. There's some things that I'll get into as we move along, and I'll be talking a lot about the WNBA throughout all of our episodes, and as that moves along, and other aspects, and segueing into sports. Of course, we'll touch on politics because race and culture bridging the divides. Politics play a lot into a lot of things that we'll be discussing. But I just want to go into this whole thing with Caitlin here. So recently, there was a game on Tuesday, and I'm going to watch the second part of this game. I'm going to play to you a clip of what happened in the game, and I'll just go back from the beginning and share this game here. Um, so here we are in the game, and Caitlin is just hooping. So we're gonna probably get out of this, and we'll be back here with it. So allegedly, Caitlin has been suspended for this. Caitlin Okay. Just want to close out of that and just share with you that we are definitely two people into trying to find uh, the best way for people to come together, regardless of what they look like, in a positive manner. Um, this whole thing with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, they've often tried to compare them to Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. You know, we've had history of where there's been denied opportunities for. I'm just going to say it like this: this country is based on what happens with black folks and what happens with white folks. So we've had a country where you didn't who was the first black basketball player, you know, and Sweetwater, you know, we talk about him. We talk about other black players and the situation in Boston with Bill Russell, things that he went through. And we go all the way back to even other athletic events. Jesse Owens going over to Germany and putting a spank on Hitler's concept of the Aryan race. Uh, Blonde hair and blue eyes were the Aryan race. I know my wife has blonde hair. And I think her eyes are blue. What are your eyes blue?
Most of the time.
They actually
They
change.
change
They
colors.
change colors, so I don't know who I'm married to one day to the next. Anyway,
Well, what I find interesting, thanks for playing that clip, by the way,
yes.
is um, I see I see things on so many different facets here. You've got not only have you got Caitlin Clark, whose skin is white,
Mhm.
Angel Reese, whose skin is brown, and she's considered black in this country, but you've also got Angel Reese, or you've got Caitlin Clark, who is heterosexual
Yes.
and a
That's another.
predominantly WNBA is predominantly most women are predominantly or homosexual
Let
considered
let
or lesbians.
lesbian.
So I mean, you've got but not only are we looking at race, but we're also looking at from a culture standpoint, but we're also looking at their sexual
Orientation,
orientation. I
but
mean,
which gets into the LGBTQIA
right.
plus thing. Not only are we looking at that, but we're looking at yes, the concept of women in general.
Hmm.
There's so many things of culture. So as we meet, hopefully every week we'll have something to talk about. Sound like Bonnie Raitt,
Well,
something to
and
talk about.
just getting back to that clip that you played, yay, I'm so glad that the Sky oops, sorry about that. That the coaches for Sky went ahead and what they did, they just
Suspended her,
suspended her indefinitely. I mean, that's
but
pretty
she has to meet some
interesting. She
criteria.
has to meet some criteria.
But I'll talk more about what I really feel is some of the sociological, psychosocial action attitudes going on with Angel. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of things, but we have to keep in mind, and no one's ever want to bring this up. But remember, when she played at LSU, she was suspended
Yeah.
for behaviors.
Yeah.
Um, um, when you think about Angel, the thing that always has hit me was Me Too.
Mm.
and that gets into some of the
She
social
feels like
things.
she's always being left out and she wants to be all that and she just needs to focus on herself and her attitude.
Well, she needs to focus on basketball, and that's another story in terms of skill level. That's always had me puzzled. Um, Angel is a basketball player. There's so many other players that are. I mean, you got the Fisher Collier. You have other players that have their skill set is just so much more surpasses hers. So, but we'll get into that as we move on. But we,
I wanted to also say this that I feel like the media
oh, the
is the
media.
ones that are always throwing this up into our face between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. And why? Why is that? Well, is it because Angel Reese is black and Caitlin Clark is white?
That's exactly
And
what it
that
is.
they've been like, foes of one another even all the way back from their
They,
college days?
well, they go back to AAU days
Right.
that they've been knowing one another. And now you have Paige Beckers, and you're going to have Juju Watkins coming on the scene. And when when people in America want to get some hype, the media, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Mhm.
Like I said, everything that happens in America, people want to look at what happened with black folks and what happened to white folks. As we move along, I'll share some of my history. If you look at our shirts, um,
Yeah, you can't see mine
you can't see
because
her, but it says race and ethics,
I'm not sitting in a hole, y'all.
the era of reclamation. What does else say here? What does it say at the bottom?
Um, Creating a better world by teaching all cultures and races.
Yes.
Raceandethics.com.
Okay, so that's the nonprofit that this is actually a part of, Race and Ethics Corporation. Uh, it's Staples at raceandethics.com is the email address. But Race and Cultures Bridging the Divides is another component, this podcast of Race and Ethics Corporation. And we are determined to bring forth this situation. How did I get interested in this? I grew up working in the civil rights movement, and a lot of my mentors were uh, very prominent in the movement. And I feel that I just need to continue that spirit and the legacy of breaking down these barriers. Sometimes when you say things as a black person, when you say things and you say this black person is wrong, sorry about the mic hit, other black folks want to say, man, you should stick up for every black person. You're a sellout. You're a You're this. Those are the two words you hear. Well, I believe in righteousness. If no matter what you look like, if you're right, you're right. If you're wrong, you're wrong. That's just the bottom line. So I'm going to always speak truth to power, no matter who you are. A good friend of mine, he's gone now. He and I used to talk about this. And Bishop Bowinkle, what he went by Thomas, his name is Thomas. I always call him Thomas. Uh, he's and he was real big in the church. And he wrote that he came out with that song, "Hell to the No, No, No." The lyrics of that song speaks to what I just said. People walking around with the pants down to their knees and the Bentleys, but he was speaking truth. Bishop, he was a good man. He was just funny, and he was a Christian. And that's another topic we'll get into more extensively. I touched on the Pope because I wanted to bring right up to our faces, so to speak, about where the Pope stands in terms of race and culture. And another part of culture is faith. He's Catholic, and we have Christians. As I said, I'm a Christian. We have the issue with uh, Jewish faith. We have issues what's going on with Muslims. We have all kinds of things. I'm thinking about Palestine right now, the terrible things that are going on. It's just so much. But we're here for you, and I'm glad that you are here with us, you can look over our head. I can't see that. My wife put that in here. You see those hands of various hues and colors and things. That's what it's all about, bringing all the cultures together.
Amen.
Oh, you go to church now. Okay. So, Jennifer,
Yes.
where did you come from? I know the planet Earth, but no,
I could be
no.
funny. Uh, well, so I grew up in a small town in Iowa. I grew up on a farm, and yeah, it was kind of a sheltered um, upbringing as far as not being exposed to a ton of different cultures. However, the town that I grew up in, um, we had a lot of Hispanic migrant workers that would
Right.
come to the town,
Hmm.
because in that town um, we had a lot of fields, but we also had a well-known manufacturer called Heinz, and so
Ketchup.
yeah, Heinz ketchup. So migrant workers would go out in the fields and pick the tomatoes, and
My goodness.
so yeah, I grew up with going to school with a lot of Hispanics. Um, no hablo el español un poquito, 2 años en escuela. If you
Right.
don't know what I meant, say it. I just said I don't know very much Spanish. I only took 2 years in school.
Boy, you just pulled me on that one.
So
That's a good one. That's a good one. You got me on that one.
don't speak Spanish,
Est-ce que vous
fortunately.
parlez français?
No, he
Oui,
speaks French.
je parle français un peu.
So, but yeah, that was kind of my upbringing. There wasn't a lot of people of color other than brown, light brown Hispanics. So, a couple people that were considered black, but very, very small population.
Well, it's interesting because that's what we have in this country. Everybody has to be categorized
Hmm.
into something. Carlton Kuhn, social psychologist, he stated in this concept of race how you can go in America and tap anyone on the shoulder and look at them, not tell what race, quote unquote, they belong to, because race, and I'll kind of put us some slides as we move on through a learning process here. Race is based upon what we look at in terms of physical characteristics. If you got this kind of skin, if you got this kind of hair, this bone structure, keeping this mic. Oh, I did it again.
But,
But
but guess what? You know what? People like me
okay,
in the summertime, where I grew up, wanted to get dark,
there
like
you
you.
there you go. Boy, you touching on some social
Yeah.
social stratification issues. And I tell you, it's so amazing this categorization of people and people wanting to get 5 shades darker than I am and hate me.
Oh man, we used to lay out on in our yard and we put baby oil and iodine on us.
Iodine.
Yeah, I guess it was supposed to help you brown.
What's the iodine?
Oh man,
That's
yeah.
that's like putting tear upon you. Amen. You know,
Yeah, baby oil mixed with iodine.
and when I grew up, the sun was too high, and we're gonna go find us a shade tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. My goodness. Going on 22 years this year that I've been knowing this woman. Um,
You've known me that long?
that
Wow.
long, yeah. We were friends for many, many years, and then we been married now for many, many
It took
years.
him a while to come around, but
Yeah,
he did.
we've been friends and friends in Christ. I'm gonna get that straight. Friends, Christian brother and sister. So that's another story. However, um, we have a lot of things that we share, and that gets down to bridging the divides. As she indicated, coming from rural area, I came from a city in Illinois. Well, now you know what city is the biggest one there, and so different cultures. Well, so interesting. we have so many things in common. Like we like the same kind of music, same kind of movies, except I'm more into, there's a slight change sometimes. I like scary movies a lot more than she does. And but we watch same kind of series, sports.
We
Um,
can't be the same all on all
you know,
categories.
otherwise we wouldn't have anything to talk
I
about,
know.
you know. And so you look at your watch.
No.
Okay.
Yes.
So, you know, so we so we've been together through so many different things. Uh, but our cultures did not collide. They coexist in a positive way. And if people could come together, look at one another and not try to categorize one another, talk to one another and not be judgmental about the voice tone or the dialect that they have, sit down, and a good thing to do is sit down and eat with somebody. You eat your collard greens and ribs and hog maws. Now and I'll share with you. Um, well, I shouldn't say this. A casserole. You should. that's, that's an
I
inside joke.
haven't made him a casserole yet.
No, she never.
Maybe one day. Well, actually, I did green bean casserole,
Green bean
and you
casserole.
loved it.
That was great.
Yes.
Yeah, and I first time I made her grits,
Oh, I'm hooked.
she's hooked on some grits, and she can make some grits too now. And so that's what I mean. Food always seems to bring people together
It sure
and
does.
break down some of this divisiveness. So as we move forward, I mentioned earlier BEI. We'll talk more about that. Just think about that.
Diversity, equity, and
Inclusion. And tell you what, BEI is better than dictatorship. You'll catch that after we
Mhm.
finish this. But remember, it's all about us coming together and learning um, to understand something. No one, when people landed in Ellis Island, when it's you're tired, you're humbled, and you're humble masses. People came up with this term, the melting pot. That the United States is a melting pot. And when I taught my classes on race and ethnic relations and multiculturalism, I came up with an idea one day, and I says, "But just think if everything is thrown into this stew, you ever stick your hand in a stew when it was in the pot and try to pull out the potato or the carrots? It burns, doesn't it? I mean, if it's hot, even if it's difficult. So I said, I think our country should be viewed more as a tossed salad. You know, you have your tomatoes, your cucumbers, anything you want, croutons, your lettuce, your spinach, and you can identify each one. You can separate each tomato out, each carrot out, and you can talk about each one, and you can visibly see them and touch them in the same process. That's what we see this country should be about, is we all are in this salad together. Okay. Another way of looking at it is that we might have all come over here on different ships. Some were forced, but we all are in the same boat now. We have to make it better, people. We have to make it better. And I just want to say for this episode, I'm so glad that we had a chance to share some thoughts, some ideas, and to get to know you out there. Remember that we are truly Racing Cultures Bridging the Divides, part of Racing Ethics Corporation. And we will be back with another episode. Until then, we're going to say uh, good night or good day, wherever you are, what time it is. And we'll see you again soon.
go and make today a better day than it was yesterday.
Amen to that. Now I'm going to church.